Thank you very much, Rabbi Lichtenstein. It is truly a profound honor for me to stand here this morning at this Yom Iyun, to stand in the presence of the Rosh Hashiva, Rav Moshe Lichtenstein, and of Rabbanit Lichtenstein. I just heard a very interesting piece of information that I previously did not know. Apparently, Rabbi Lichtenstein used to be the acting director of student services at Stern College. Now, we are looking to enhance Stern College, and I'm going to ask her if she's interested in shlichut and coming back in that capacity. It's wonderful as well to wish a mazal tov on the birth of two great-grandchildren this past Friday, a granddaughter to Rav Moshe, just to see the simcha in this such a special family, and to know how deeply, after speaking at great length to Rav Lichtenstein about his profound love for his family, how wonderful it is to see the generations continue to grow and to bloom. To be here this morning to talk in memory of Moreinu Rabbeinu Rav Lichtenstein Zatzal is at once a deep honor as well as something that brings out to me a profound sadness. The day that Rav Lichtenstein passed away was one of the most painful days of my life. I could not imagine a world without Rav Lichtenstein. I could not imagine my world without Rav Lichtenstein. It's been 3 years, and his memory is still very much alive and present in my mind and in my life, as I know that it is in all of our minds and all of our lives. As his students, there is no doubt that the best way to commemorate his third yahrzeit is by studying together his Torah. For it is his teachings that have influenced our thinking and profoundly shaped our lives. By studying his Torah, then, we not only remember him, but reflect upon the way in which he has impacted us, and how he would in turn want us to go out and impact others. And this is why I chose the topic of Kedushat Yisrael to begin this morning's Yom Iyun. For this topic relates to some of the core messages that Rav Lichtenstein has imparted to us, and messages that continue to influence us throughout our days and throughout our years. Allow me to explain. Rabbi Lichtenstein mentioned that in the Sefer Kedushat Aviv, the focus is on Kedushat Makom and Kedushat Zman. But there are other places that Rav Lichtenstein related to another kind of Kedusha, Kedushat Yisrael. The place that I want to focus on this morning is the article that he wrote in response to Brother Daniel. Does everybody have source sheets? Source sheets distributed. In the case of Brother Daniel, I'm sure you remember, it's the story of a young Jew born in Poland who was a partisan during the World War II. He actually is somewhat of a war hero, how he he smuggled weapons out of the Germans' hands and saved Jews, risking his life. He then hid in a monastery, converted to Christianity, chose a monastic order that specifically had a place in Israel, for he wanted to move to Israel. Finally, he moved to Israel, and he tried to become a citizen based on the law of return. And this led to a great question in the state of Israel, whether a Jew who converted to become a Christian and actually became a monk could claim that he is still Jewish. What is it to be a Jew? Can one be a Christian? Can one be a monk and still be a Jew and get in under the law of return? This is a very big question that created much debate and discussion going to the Supreme Court. We're not going to talk about the case. But in response to it, Rabbi wrote an article on Brother Daniel that dealt with the core issue of Kedushat Yisrael and whether one can lose one's Kedushat Yisrael. Although today we normally think of the phrase that once a Jew, always a Jew, or the phrase that Rashi, quoting the Gemara in Sanhedrin, made famous, Yisrael shachata, Afal pi shachata Yisraelu. Is that true in all spheres? Is that true in all cases? Rabbi Kedarko B'Kodesh analyzed the issue in this article on many facets, pointing out that the different aspects of halacha with different definitions or requirements or qualifications, and that it's not just an open and shut question. But he also related to the core halachic issue of essentially, can one ever lose one's Jewishness, which of course leads to the meta question of what does it mean to be a Jew. One of the issues in which this cuts on, or one of the issues in where we can see the answer to this, is in the issue of Kedushin. Let's say you have someone who's born of a Jew, in this case changes his religion perhaps, and then he's Mekadesh Bat Yisrael. Is his Kedushin still Chal? Is it valid? Rav Lichtenstein, if you look at source number 1, first quoted the Gemara in Yevamot that deals with Gerut. Tani shlosha tava va'ala hareu ki Yisrael l'chol dvarav. The Gemara, quoting a Braita, says that if after the non-Jew does the tefillah, finishes the conversion, comes up, he's like a Jew, Yisrael l'chol dvarav. L'may hilchata. What does it mean, Yisrael l'chol dvarav? What is the halachic nafkamina for Yisrael l'chol dvarav? And di hadar bei mekadesh bat Yisrael, Yisrael mumar, or meshumad, more correctly, karina bei b'kedushav kedushin. That if he is choser, after he converts to Judaism, and he's choser to his earlier ways, and then he's mekadesh to bat Yisrael, he's called Yisrael meshumad, and its kedushav and its kedushin is still chal. This Gemara was cited by many Rishonim dealing with a case in the medieval era that was very different, dealing with one who converted to Islam or one who converted to Christianity. Clearly the Gemara was not talking about somebody who converted to another monotheistic religion, but the word meshumad in the Gemara, Rav Lichtenstein points out, has 5 different connotations. But even at its most egregious, certainly is not talking about someone who converts to a monotheistic religion, somebody who's Oved Avodah Zarah, maybe Meshumad L'chol HaTorah Kula. And the Rishonim ask, what about in our case? Because in their day and age, there were Jews who converted to Islam if they were in Islamic countries, Jews who converted to Christianity in Christian countries. What is their halachic status? And there are many ramifications for this. And many quoted this Gemara to prove that once a Jew, always a Jew, that his Kedushin is still Chal. A couple of minor opinions. There's Rav Shimshon, the Rav Lichtenstein footnotes, and the God Mordechai that says that the Gemara here is just talking about L'chumra, not L'kula. It's a famous position that the Yitur quotes of the earlier rabbis. The Yitur actually, Rabbi Yitzchak Abamari of the 12th century in Provence, actually doesn't quote this Gemara, but uses other sources. But by and large, the world of halacha, the world of the Rishonim, it seems, clearly think that an apostate, even after he switches religions, if he does Kedushin, his Kedushin is Chal. But yet there's another Gemara. Rav Lichtenstein quotes the Gemara in Yevamot, that Zayin Amabet. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Rav Asi. Goy shekidesh b'zman hazeh, choshin l'kedushin, shema ma'aseret hashvatim hu. The Gemara asks the question or raises the issue. Let's say a non-Jew marries or is mikadesh in front of Eidim a Jewish woman. According to Rav Yehuda, who said the name of Rav Asi, you have to be choshesh for his kedushin. Why? Maybe he's a descendant of the 10 Shvatim. 10 Shvatim were exiled how many thousands of years ago? Perhaps he's a descendant of the Aseret Shvatim, and therefore, even though he himself doesn't even know it, maybe he's a Jew, and therefore we have to be worried for his Kedushin. There are two opinions of how Shmuel reacted to that, but if you look at the last underline, Kamrita Kamei de Shmuel, Amarlei lo zazu misham ad sha'asim goyim gemurim. When this teaching came before Shmuel, he said they didn't move from there until they made them goyim gemurim, quoting the pasuk in Hosea, Bashem bagadu ki banim zarim yaladu, that they rebelled against God and they bore foreign children. And somehow this Gemara means, the question is what exactly does it mean, that Shmuel said that all of these sons, all of these Goyim, even if they were from the descendants of even if they are the descendants of the 10 Shvatim, they're all non-Jews. There's no need to worry about their Kedusha. So Rav Yochanan quotes this Gemara in contrast to the Gemara before. Why should you not worry that they're Yisrael Meshumat? Their Kedushin is Chal. And this phrase of Lo Zazu Misham Ad Sha'asim Goyim Gemurim actually appears in another place as well. The Gemara in source number 3, the Gemara in Chulin, tells a story of the Kutim, of the Samaritans, a similar situation. In this case, they found their Oda Avodah Zarah. If you look at the underlines, V'sipa Dvarim Lefnei Rav Ami Rav Asi Lo Zazu Misham Ad Sha'asim Goyim Gemurim. The rabbis declared that the Samaritans, even if you say that their Gerut was a good Gerut, not Geri Arayot, but Geri Emet, but they declared that they're considered like Goyim Gemurim. The Gemara mentions the Nafkaminot, more of the Chumrot, meaning things, Yayin Nesech, their Shchita, Shabbat, Erev Chatzerot. But there's a Machoket Rishonim if that also applies even L'Kula. And Rav Yochanan quotes the Rambam and the Parish HaMishnah, Tanida, where he uses it L'Kula. And when the Kutim are made Goyim Gemurim, they're made it totally. And by analogy, using the same phrase, that should also have been true when it comes to the descendants of the Aseret Shvatim. And here we have a contradiction. On the one hand, the Gemara in Kedushin tells us that Yisrael Meshumad, it doesn't matter what his actions are. Once he converts, he's a Jew, he's always a Jew. Nothing he can do to change that status. And therefore his Kedushin is Chal. On the other hand, you have the Gemara in Yevamot that sounds like his fundamental Jewish status can be changed and altered dependent on his character and his actions. So we have a contradiction. And Rav Yochanan suggests, quoting in the footnote, the Rav, who's quoting Reb Chaim, that the difference between these Gemarot is the difference between the kind of apostate that we're talking about. There's an apostate who, let's say a first-generation apostate, he knows he's Jewish, but he's doing Aveirot. Even if he left the Torah lifestyle totally, still his Jewish identity is intact, as opposed to the pasuk in Hosea, Abashem bagadu ki banim zarim yaladu. That's talking about someone who's totally lost, descendants of the 10 tribes. They're totally lost from Am Yisrael. They have no Jewish identity. They don't even know that they're Jewish. They don't even know that they have roots that are Jewish. That's an apostate who's not even Jewish, that the rubber band can burst. that while there is flexibility in Jewish identity, there is a point in which one can lose one's Jewish identity. And he quotes Reb Chaim, who explained these Gemarot in this way. Now this is a very significant chidush, and certainly to use these Gemarot. And again, Rav Lichtenstein quoted all the minor shitot in that understood based on the Gemara in Yevamot that maybe Kedushin's not chal. But here he's saying, even according to the majority opinion, the lahalacha, that there is a point where somebody loses his fundamental Kedushat Yisrael. Vilstein, of course, notes, he says, is it true then, let's say he returns, let's say he's a Baal Tshuva, he stumbles into Lincoln Square Synagogue, he hears an excellent drasha by Rabbi Shaul Robinson. I just want to acknowledge the presence of our wonderful host. And I have heard many drashot by Rabbi Robinson, certainly worthy of bringing someone back to the fold. And he decides he wants to become Jewish. And he finds out his roots and that he is Jewish. Would one say that he has to convert? Does he have to do tefillah, milah? Does he have to convert? And there's a lot of discussion in the Rishonim about apostates who return. And there's discussion, if we have a chance to maybe touch on, about them going through some ritual conversions. But let's assume that no one thinks that he has to fully, really convert halachically. So Vilstein explains that one can distinguish between, parallel to what we find in the Sefer in Kedushat Aviv. Vilstein talks about this, of the distinction between Kedushat Eretz Yisrael and Shem Eretz Yisrael. But the same thing applies for Kedushat Yisrael and Shem Yisrael of a person. That you can lose your Kedushat Yisrael, where your Kedushin is not chal, but still keep a Shem Yisrael. So that if you ever return, you can return to your status of Kedushat Yisrael without an official conversion. This article always stood out in my mind, certainly the source in the Gemara in Yevamot. And for the few minutes that we have, I just wanted to share some additional sources with you to perhaps even more root the idea in some Makorot that I didn't see that maybe Rav Lichtenstein in other cases, Moshe can tell me, quoted them, but just to mention them to add to the discussion. If you look at source number 4, so this is the first Makor, certainly in Bavel, after the Talmud, written by Rav Yudai Gaon. And when he quotes this issue, very interestingly, he says, Kuti shekidesh choshin likdushav, maisa v'tzrichu gita marav Shmuel marav Yudai. That if a Kuti gets married, we're choshishin, we're worried about his kedushin. He doesn't say it definitively one way or the other, which is significant. And a story is quoted, the psak must have been put in afterwards, where Rav Shmuel and Rav Yudai required a get in such a case. Similarly, a Yisrael Meshumad that married were choshesh in the Kedusha. That's an amazing line. Is Rav Yudai Gaon, 8th century Gaon of Surah, who does not say that it's Kedushin Vadai. It's Choshishin the Kedushin. Right? The Gemara in Yevamot sounded like that, Yisrael Afal B'Shachata is definitely Yisrael, and it's Kedushin. But Rav Yudai Gaon, this is before Rav Shimshon and the God Mordechai, says that in fact it's just Choshishin the Kedushin. A little afterwards, Rav Shimon Kayara, in the Halachot Gedolot, deals with this issue in source number 5. And he writes, Kuti shekidesh choshin l'kedusha v'yamaisa v'tzrichu gita marav Yudai u'marav Shmuel. A line that sounds very familiar, but is not a coincidence, because Rav Shimon Kayara often quotes and puts in Rav Yehuda Gaon in his sefer, one of the makorot of the Halachot Gedolot. But then he veers. V'hilchata bar meshumad d'yolid megaya d'mekadesh lo tafsan le kedushay meshumad gufei tafsei kedushay delay. And the halacha is that the son of a meshumad who was born to a non-Jew, if he does kedushin, it's not tofes. But the meshumad himself, if he does kedushin, it is tofes. My taima, meshumad di hadarbe imakadesh tafsale kedushay. The meshumad, if he's chozer and he's makadesh, his kedushin is tofes. However, bar meshumad di yolad migaya goyhu. Tichtiv b'Hashem bagadu ki banim zarim yaladu. Ima kadesh lo tafsalei kedushay. D'kamrina lo zazim misham ad sho'asim gayim gemurim. Daf kibinayu aval inhu lo. The Gemara in Yevamot distinguishes between the banim, according to the Bahag. The children are not Jewish, but the father is still Jewish. Now, what's strange about this Bahag? What's strange? What's difficult here? I'm sorry? The father is Jewish. The Bahag, when he quotes the Gemara in Yevamot about the Asar Shvatim, relates to a case where the mother's not Jewish. Now you don't need a Gemara in Yevamot to tell you if the mother's not Jewish that the kid isn't Jewish. Right? The Mishnayot in Kedushin, we know that already. So it's a very peculiar Bahag, but even how he explains the Meshumad himself, why is it that the Meshumad himself, his Kedushin is Tofes? What does he say? How can you explain that if he's Chozer and he's Makadesh, then it's Tofes? So therefore, if he's a Meshumad, it's also Tofes. What does that mean? Shema Mahara Tshuva, Yafeh, there is an angle. He doesn't say it, but there is an angle later that idea is brought up. How else would you explain it? What does it mean? If he's a Meshumad, the Kedushin is Chal, because if he is Chozer, his Kedushin is Chal. Once a Jew, always a Jew, meaning that's the proof. That once a Jew, always a Jew, could be. It's interesting, it's really the same language that the Gemara is using for the opposite case of a non-Jew who converts, but it could be. And here there are 2 points I'd make. One is notice the difference between the Rabbi Yehuda Gaon and Rav Shimon Kayara. According to Rabbi Yehuda Gaon, if a Meshumad does Kedushin, it's Choshesh in the Kedusha. According to Rav Shimon Kayara, if he does Kedushin, then what? It's Chal. Now this is the question. Look at source number 7, a little later in Reb Natronai Gaon. The question was asked also 9th century, not also, but 9th century Gaon of Surah. Shaltem b'shvil Yisrael shenishtameh. Mao she'garis shishto kashu meshumad. Mi amrina an kiven di kadosh havik kedushay kedushin. Gitu nami avigetu. Dima l'chumra amrina l'kula lo amrina. The question was asked to Reb Natronai Gaon. Can a meshumad give a get? Do you say that when we say Kedushin is Chal, it's only l'chumra, so therefore he can't give a get? Or we say that he's a full Jew, and just like you do Kedushin, he can give a get. What's the question, basically, that's being asked in the 9th century? Is who's right? Is it Rabbi Yehuda Gaon, or is it the Halachot Gedolot? Who's right? Who do we paskin like? Rabbi Natronai Gaon says clearly his Kedushin is Chal, his get is Chal, and from that point on, that was the assumption for the rest of Jewish history. Meaning in the original layer, right after the Bavli, it was a machlokes between Rabbi Yehuda Gaon and the Baal Halachot Gedolot. But that machloket, but for a couple of minor shitot, seemed to be settled. That is Kedushin Ischal. That a regular Meshumad is Kedushin Ischal. That's the first point. The second point, going back to the very strange case, why does the Bahag say that the son of a Meshumad born to a non-Jewish woman is a guy, quoting the Gemara in Yevamot? You don't need a Gemara in Yevamot in order to prove that point. I don't have a good answer for this. Professor Blitzstein, another Talmud, Professor Blitzstein, in one of his articles on this issue, suggested that it was so striking to later generations that actually the Yolad Migaya was added in later. Now, if you think about how it turns out then, let's just read it without it for a second. Basically what the Bahag would be saying is that a Meshumad himself stays to be a Jew. But the child of a Meshumad is no longer a Jew for his Kedushin, and that's the Gemara in Yevamot. The Gemara in Yevamot tells us that the actual Meshumad himself remains a Jew for Kedushin, but the descendants of this Meshumad is lost. Now, if this is true, then this is Rav Lichtenstein's thesis, quoting the Rav, quoting Reb Chaim, which is that if one still identifies, one knows, one has knowledge of, and he's a Meshumad, then he remains a Jew. But there is a point where the rubber bands can burst, where the descendants become non-Jews. Now, I personally don't, and Professor Blitzstein was just mentioning as a possibility, based on the fact that the earlier translations of the Bahag also have this line. I don't necessarily think that that is the solution, but I did find this in the Meiri. If you look at source number 9, the Meiri mentions 3 levels of Jewish deviation. And he based it off the Gemara in Avodah Zarah Chavav Amid Bet, which deals with the issue of lo malin v'lo maridin, that if somebody falls in a pit, you don't help him up, and you throw him in, or v'lo malin maridin v'lo malin, which the Gemara refers to for the case of Apikoros and the case of Meshumad. With Dvarim Elu, there are 3 levels. Kulon kasher dayin shem Yisrael alav, u'ma'achar shu mitpaker mechalel et hadat, ansho chamor harbeh. The first level is there's a Jew who's a Meshumad, who's over Aveira. Terrible Aveirot. He's an Apikoris. That punishment is the most chamor. Hakol sheyatim l'chal dat Yudit, v'nichnas lo b'chal dat acheret, harei etzleinu k'ben oto adat shenichnas ba l'chol davar chutz migitinu kedushin, o kol zikat isha k'mo shitber b'mkomo. The second level, and this is a major chidush, is someone who actually sounds like he's worse. He converts to another religion. He leaves Judaism. In the Meiri's case, becomes a Christian. His punishment isn't so severe, the Meiri says. He's treated like the status of people of another religion. And the Meiri's famous shita about umot agdurot b'darchei adatot, you actually don't throw that person in the pit. Right? If he's a Jew and he's a Meshumad and an Apikoris, his onesh is chamor. Because the chilul is perhaps greater. Once he converts to another religion, then he's treated as a person of another religion. You actually don't throw him in the pit. That's what most people focus on in this paragraph because it's so amazing. I mean, amazing in many senses of the terms. And then he says, "Ubeno miha areu goy gamor aflin gitin v'kedushin." But his son of the Meshumad is a goy gamor, even for the union of gitin and kedushin. And here is what I think Rav Lichtenstein was saying. I think it's beferish in the Meiri. that there is a place, there is a time when the rubber band bursts, that there is a difference between the Mishumad and his descendants. The Meiri, not coincidentally perhaps, also in the Gemara in Yevamot Tet Zayin, talks about the issue of Kedusha not being Chal. And this very much fits with the whole Shitot of the Meiri, which now we don't have time to talk about. But I do think it buttresses, or is perhaps the first earliest, clearest makor of this concept when it comes to Kedushat Yisrael, that there is a place where it can end, which is a major piece which has great resonance and ramifications for today's day and age, which we don't need to go into at the moment. So when we speak about Kedushat Yisrael, we speak about at once a threshold issue. We want to have Kedushat Yisrael, in this case, to be Mekadesh Shabbat Yisrael, or not. That is one level of Kedushat Yisrael. But I know that my time is coming to an end, so let me just say that there's a whole other concept of Kedushat Yisrael that's separate and apart from this one. Rabbi Lichtenstein mentioned this week's Parshiot and the issue of Kedoshim Tiyu. So here it's very interesting. Kadosh Baruch Hu tells us Kedoshim Tiyu. Now, don't we all have Kedushat Yisrael? What does it mean, Kedoshim Tiyu? Yes, where we have Kedushat Yisrael, Kedoshim Tiyu. So it seems like there are two concepts of Kedushat, or Kedushat Yisrael. There's Kedushat Yisrael, which is the sanctity of the Jew, which is basically a yes or no question. It's a yes or no question dependent on the parameters and dependent on the issue, meaning it's very complex. Different issues get at different threshold points. But it's a yes or no question. And then there's another element of Kedushat Yisrael, which is more, perhaps better translated as holiness. And here, there are gradations. And all throughout these Parshiot, we're told about these gradations. The end of Parshat Shmini, Al tishakzu ef nafshotechem, b'chol asher tesharetz, v'lo titamu bam, v'nitmeitem bam, ki ani Hashem Elokeichem, v'kadishtem, v'yitem kedoshim, ki kadosh ani. V'lo titamu et nafshotechem, b'chol asher terameis ala aretz. The nemesis of this Kedusha, interestingly enough, is Tumah. And if one does Aveirot, we're told all throughout this Parsha, you are mitameh yourself. Right? This isn't referring to Kedushat Yisrael of whether you're chayav, whether your Kedushin is chal. It's not that kind of sanctity. It's about holiness. And in this context, the Torah teaches us Kedoshim Tiyu. If Aveirot can be mitameh, then the way to become more kadosh, if your lifestyle and actions can lessen your kedusha, the way to be more kadosh is also through your lifestyle and your actions. And the question, of course, is what actions make you more kadosh? Kedoshim Tiyu. Rashi famously says, Prushim Tiyu. You should be parush. And in truth, that's a very easily understandable notion of Kedusha. And we have it all over the place. Certainly Kedushat Makom, Kedushat Zman. How do we do Kedushat Makom, Kedushat Zman? We set it apart. We make it muvdal. It's mufrash. Har Sinai, we need to set up boundaries. It has to be separate. The Mishkan. Create boundaries, make it separate. Create a place that's different. That's mufrash. V'asuli mikdash v'shachanti b'tocha. Make a mikdash. You make the mikdash by setting it apart, and then I'll make it a mishkan. But this kedusha being parush, being separate. Why is it in Beit Knesset there are special rules of how we act? Because we need to set aside a place that's parush. Kedushat Zman of Shabbat, of Kiddush, Havdalah, we need to segment the time. It's kadosh. And all of us who've been in these places and in these times could appreciate that level of Kedushat, the experience of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, of feeling connected to Kadosh Baruch Hu during those times, feeling a sense of Kedushat. It's mugdal, it's mufrash. It's almost easier. But interestingly, in Kedoshim to you, that's not the formula that's said in the Parsha. How do you do Kedoshim to you? Yishimo v'aviv tiro. It's how you treat your parents. It's that you're a farmer and you shall live peah and leave leket. It's lo tignovu. It's not to steal. Lo ta'amod al dam re'echa. Lo tisa dechicha b'vavecha. V'hafta l're'echa kamocha. The formula of being more kadosh in the Torah is not to separate yourself from the world, but is actually to be a part of the world, but to act in a certain way which brings Kedushat to your life and to the world. And both elements are crucial. You need times and you need places that are mufrash and muvdal, places where you feel Hashem in that makom kedusha, makom kadosh, and you need also to bring kedusha into the world, to live in the world, and be a part of the world, to sanctify your life and to sanctify the world. This Kedushat Yisrael, which is the first level of the threshold issue, and then this Kedusha of holiness. I'm going, y'all, don't worry. So let me just say that it's these two kinds of Kedushot. The Kedusha of both separating the time and places, and the Kedusha of integrating into the world, that Rav Lichtenstein taught us. That Rav Lichtenstein's life, that his teachings and his lessons, and his life lessons, taught us so deeply. And it's why being a student, one of the reasons being a student, was so impactful. He taught us so much. He transmitted to us his derech halimud. He shaped the contours of our worldview. He expected us to be the Jewish leaders of tomorrow, and he gave us the confidence that we can impact the world. He revealed the sheer depth and majesty of our tradition, and by word and example, he taught us the true and utter joy of both living a life of mitzvot in this world, while also standing lifnei Hashem. How to create times and spaces of separation and holiness, and to bring Kedusha with us into the world. This life perspective I certainly take with me every day, as I know we all take with us as we go throughout our days. One of the great brachot that I've had in my life, one of the greatest brachot, was to have Rav Lichtenstein as my Rebbe. I was unbelievably privileged to be able to turn to him for guidance and advice throughout my years as a student, as a rabbi, as a new oleh. It gave me enormous strength and support, knowing that whatever I faced, I had him to turn to and him with whom I can speak. His absence is an incalculable loss to all of Am Yisrael. But speaking personally as just one student, his passing has left a deep hole in my life. And after assuming my new position, now perhaps more than ever before, I need his wisdom and his guidance. The nechama, of course, is that while he's physically absent, he is not absent from our lives, as his teachings and ethos are etched in our minds. We still turn to him for guidance, but not in the same way. While no longer able to have a direct conversation, we check our moral compass and our conscience, ensuring that our daily and life decisions hold up to the standards that we learn from him. On my desk, I have a picture of Rav Lichtenstein that was taken at the Gush dinner. And when I make my life decisions, and when I make the decisions that shape the future of our beloved institution, I think strongly about what Rav Lichtenstein would have told me to do. While we know that we can never approach the level of Kedusha of Rav Lichtenstein, his words and examples nevertheless represent our North Star. and they continue to direct us and to guide us. And that indeed is a great bracha that will forever remain with us. Harvarin ben Yechiel of Huma, Tenishmato Baruch. May his memory be for a blessing, as his memory and legacy is a blessing for all of us.